All right, the numbers have kind of leveled off now, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Alan Beck. I'm the chair of the Physical Activity Alliance's Professional Development Sector. Today's webinar is titled Physical Activity in Older Adults. The presentations today relate to our partners at the CDC's Active People, Healthy Nation, where it is their goal and hopefully all of our goal to help increase physical activity among 27 million more Americans. I'm going to have the speakers go ahead and introduce themselves. I'm kind of feeling under the weather, so I will pass it off first to Allison to start us off.
Excellent. Well, I am going to try to grab the screen share here. And I'll introduce myself while that's loading up. My name is Allison Vox-Bierke. I'm a physical activity advisor within the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion, and that's at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And I have been here for 8.5 years. I got my Master of Public Health in Physical Activity and Public Health. And then after doing some AmeriCorps and teaching adjunct around DC, I got an email from an internship supervisor asking me to apply to a position at HHS to work on the physical activity guidelines for Americans, which was a dream project for my degree. So of course I jumped at the chance, and here I am 8.5 years and 1 day later. So I am here today to talk to you all about the physical activity guidelines for Americans Midcourse Report implementation strategies for older adults. And before I do that, I want to give a little bit of the historical context for how the midcourse fits into the federal physical activity landscape. So the first edition of the physical activity guidelines was released in 2008, and the guidelines provide the amounts and types of physical activity needed for getting and staying healthy. And so the key outcome for the guidelines is health outcomes. 5 years after the first edition was released, HHS came out with an implementation-focused mid-course report on what works to get youth more active. And so the key outcome for that implementation-focused mid-course was physical activity outcomes. So keeping with that timeline, 5 years after the mid-course, 10 years after the first edition, HHS released the second edition of the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans in 2018. And as we find ourselves 5 years later, we did release 2 weeks ago, the mid-course reports on older adults. All of these are based on systematic literature reviews, which are available for you to download on health.gov if you are interested. So what are the guidelines? This graphic shows the key guidelines for older adults, which we define as 65 years and older. But for all adults ages 18 and older, we need at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic physical activity each week and 2 days a week of muscle strengthening physical activity. An additional guideline for older adults is to get multi-component physical activity in the week, which combines muscle strengthening, aerobic, and balance activity as well. And knowing that older adults are a varied population and many may have one or more chronic conditions, we just encourage them to be as physically active as their abilities or conditions allow. So why did we decide to focus on older adults for the mid-course report? As you can see from the data on this slide, older adults have low rates of meeting the guidelines. We don't have an overall 65 plus line on this chart, but only about 15% of older adults meet both the aerobic and muscle strengthening guidelines. And this is tracked through NHIS data on healthypeople.gov and Healthy People 2030. And the Physical Activity Objective 5 has a dynamic data dashboard that you can track how we're doing by different age groups. So if you're interested in getting more into the data weeds, I encourage you to go to healthypeople.gov. Another reason why we chose older adults is that people are living longer, which means there's gonna be a lot more older adults. So we wanna get them more active now so that they can reap the many benefits, physical, mental, social, and economic of being physically active. What is the mid-course report and who was it written for? I'm sure that's why you all tuned in. The midcourse report summarizes strategies that the audiences listed on this slide can use in key settings to increase physical activity among older adults and to reinforce the message that physical activity can begin or restart at any age. Many older adults do face barriers to getting or staying physically active, and these are often related to older adults' capabilities or motivations, so those internal factors, as well as opportunities, some of the external factors. And we've got some content in the midcourse about identifying those and how to overcome them, because understanding the different barriers that older adults face is key to delivering effective and equitable interventions. So, as I mentioned, the midcourse report highlights evidence-based strategies and interventions to support physical activity among older adults in a variety of settings so that they can achieve the benefits of physical activity that are outlined in the guidelines. It really is never too late to start being active to gain these health benefits. And some of the benefits of regular activity for older adults are living independently for longer, improved quality of life, better health, and reduced need for medical care. We know in the guidelines there are immediate benefits as well, but just wanted to highlight some of these as the key messages for older adults specifically. So we organized the report around these different strategies that can be implemented wherever older adults are spending their time and in key settings. So 3 key settings arose during our literature review, and that was community, healthcare settings, and then the home or neighborhood environment. And we described them in 3 sort of buckets. So we've got policy, systems, and environmental approaches, or PSE, behavior change, and physical activity programs. So I'm going to walk through these buckets a little bit with you. So starting with the PSE strategies, we're talking population level strategies, such as those related to transportation and neighborhood environments that aim to give all people safe, easily accessible physical activity opportunities. And one strategy that has been shown to increase physical activity among older adults is making communities more walkable through community design. The behavior change strategies are using individual level approaches to influence knowledge, skills, attitudes, and beliefs related to physical activity. A lot of times when we're talking about how do we get people to be more active, we're really thinking about these individual level strategies. And so cognitive behavioral strategies and physical activity counseling are behavior change strategies that are often components of physical activity programs, which we'll talk about in a second, and interventions. And they are an effective way to increase physical activity self-efficacy and change physical activity behavior. And so finally, in the buckets, we've got physical activity programs, and these vary widely in their intervention design and the strategies that they employ to increase physical activity. Structured exercise programs, as you can imagine, guide participants through specific exercises or prescribe a set of exercises for participants to complete. And then lifestyle-based physical activity programs encourage participants to engage in more physical activity throughout the day, typically beyond or in addition to structured exercise. But both types of programs can help individuals find new ways to be active that fit into their everyday lives. And throughout the midcourse report, we highlight programs or communities that are really demonstrating how these strategies can be implemented in different settings. So hopefully you find one that you identify with or that resonates with you and inspires you to action. And everyone has a role to play in increasing physical activity among older adults and encouraging progress towards meeting the guidelines. So people from across different sectors can be involved in these efforts. I'm going to walk through some that are listed on this screen, but the midcourse report also identifies individuals after each strategy that can implement those. So let's start with professionals who are working with older adults, and this is in one-on-one or group settings. You're creating that relationship and the trust and implementing the individual level behavior change strategies or running the physical activity program. So you're like critical key on the ground doing the work. So thank you. Please keep doing that. And I'll share some resources with you as well to help you with that. Next, we have organizations which have the opportunity to create and run physical activity programs for older adults. and provide spaces and facilities for physical activity and social interaction for older adults. Moving on to communities, this is where you can create activity-friendly and aging-friendly environments through community design that support older adults, not only in being able to be active for transportation or leisure, but in feeling safe and confident in doing so. And finally, policymakers and decision makers are literally in charge of setting the policies that either facilitate or create barriers to activity. So every piece of this puzzle is super important in making a more active, friendly environment for older adults. But in order for policy to be effective, it needs implementation, and that's where you come in. I know I'm breezing through this, but ODPHB does have some tools to help with this. So I'm going to highlight some Move Your Way materials. So Move Your Way, if you are not familiar, is the promotional campaign for the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans. And the main audience is physical activity contemplators, which, based on the data I shared, is most older adults, so people who are not yet being active. All of our materials are user tested. All of our materials are free for you to download from health.gov, and they're all available in English and Spanish. We've got materials for a variety of different audiences, but I'm focusing on older adults today. So if you want to learn more about Move Your Way and all we have to offer, we also have a video about what is Move Your Way campaign. And that's a resource that discusses the campaign and how implementers and organizers can use it to help promote physical activity in your community. So the QR code on this slide links you right to that video so you can learn a little bit more about the campaign in general. So all of our Move Your Way materials point people to the Move Your Way microsite, where people can learn more about the benefits of physical activity, find tips to get moving, and create a personalized physical activity plan using our interactive tool. And on that Move Your Way website, there is a specific section for older adults that has all of our older adult content linked there. So our activity planner, which you can see on the right side of the screen, includes you can choose different motivators for being active. Several of which are highlighted in green: ease pain, have better balance, and age well, may resonate with older adults. And so when users select these motivators for being active and make their plan, so select the motivators and it'll show you different activities and you can select which ones you're interested in. You also get specific tips and resources about healthy aging, like information on how physical activity can help reduce the risk of falls, or other resources that they might be interested in, like the story in the middle of the screen about how John and Patty not only get active together, but also find creative ways to eat healthy. And we've heard from a lot of the people during user testing that physical activity and healthy eating really are linked together. So wanted to make sure we had some resources that combine those two topics. And the Move Your Way website is linked at the bottom of the screen. So I just wanted to zoom in on this a little bit. The activity planner, after making their plan, users can then print out a personalized tracker to help keep a record of the activities they plan to do that week. And so then you can use that for goal setting or monitoring, tracking progress. This can be done with a professional, health professional or fitness professional, with a family member, or just on their own. But as you can see, for this activity tracker, we chose the motivators for aging well. And you could see that they've selected a few different activity types, and you can track how you're using that throughout the week. For older adults, for the last Move Your Way slide I have here, I just wanted to highlight the different types of resources we have. We've got fact sheets, posters, and videos that can explain why physical activity is key to healthy aging, what kinds of activity older adults need, and how to get it. And we also have a new fact sheet, particularly for healthcare providers who frequently work with older adults. So your geriatricians, physical therapists, family physicians, on how to talk to their older adult patients about getting active. And because everyone has a role to play, we really want you to get involved in promoting and using the Midcourse Report and its related resources. The QR code on this slide links you right to our mid-course report page on health.gov. But you can also sign up for email updates. And again, I'm underscoring these are all free resources for you to use throughout your work. This is your tax dollars at work, so please don't reinvent the wheel. So that's, I breezed through that. I hope that you will reach out if you have questions. And I am going to turn things over to Rebecca from AARP Livable Communities to talk a little bit about what they're doing.
Well, hey everyone. Allison, that was so great. Thank you for your presentation. My name is Rebecca Delphia. I'm a senior advisor with AARP Livable Communities, and just delighted to be here with you today with the Physical Activity Alliance, and in particular to be sharing the virtual stage with so many wonderful partners and collaborators. So I thought that presentation was just fabulous. As we heard, the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans Midcourse Report talks about the importance of community design. How do we create physical, or essentially increase physical activity among older adults by making communities more walkable, more bikeable, have different ways of getting around. So I'm going to be talking about how communities can take action on that important slice of the priority, and also some resources we have that can help communities in that venture. So a little bit about myself. At AARP Livable Communities, we partner with local leaders, policymakers, citizen activists all around the country to help make communities more livable for people of all ages. Specifically, I lead the development of our nationwide technical assistance trainings and our grant making program, which is called the AARP Community Challenge. And personally, biking is a passion of mine. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This is my preferred way to get around with my husband and my two kiddos. That's Noah, age 10, and Ethan, age 7. So I'm a big personal believer in the value of expanding opportunities for physical activity in our communities. So to get us started, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that many of you have heard of AARP before. Many people know us because we've got those red cards, we've got those famous discounts, but we are also a membership organization. We represent 38 million older adults around the country, and we're an advocacy organization with a goal of supporting and empowering people to live their best lives every single day. So we work on a lot of important issues that affect older Americans, protecting Social Security, reducing prescription drug prices, supporting the hiring of older workers. But the truth is that none of that really matters if people don't live in a community that meets our needs. And so that's why we created the Livable Communities Initiative and why we continue to champion the value of this kind of work today. So changing demographics are really the impetus for our work. This is a statistic that we always start with. It continues to drive us all the time. And it's the reality that American communities are on the precipice of enormous change. But this is not a change that should catch anyone by surprise, because we are all, each of us, of course, aging. By 2034, the US will, for the very first time ever, be a country comprised more of older adults than of children. And knowing that that turning point is on the horizon is in many ways an opportunity. We know those coming changes can and should provide the catalyst needed to revisiting common development practices that have over time generated more problems than promise, particularly when it comes to older adults. So that's really where our work comes in. We are invested in creating more livable communities because we know that in order to support people to live their very best lives, in order for them to live independently, to stay in the community as they age, as 8 in 10 of people 50 plus do want to do, we have to create communities that respond to the needs of older adults. So a lot of what we do is work with communities to help them ask questions like the ones you see on the screen. Are there transportation and mobility choices available that serve older adults and people of all ages? We then ask those same questions around housing, around public spaces, around social and civic engagement. It all comes back to this notion that older adults are our driving force, but ultimately the solutions that we are encouraging are meant to be intergenerational, they're meant to be inclusive, they're really meant to serve everyone regardless of their age and regardless of their ability. And that's been a successful frame because literally everyone can see themselves in it. I think it's fair to say that in many ways it doesn't necessarily work well for older adults now, and it potentially won't work well for them going forward. On the housing side of things, there's a real mismatch between the type of housing that many communities are creating, a predominance of older homes better suited to families with small children, when in reality, more than half of all households are 1 to 2 persons. On the transportation side, we know there aren't enough options available. Older adults, in fact, outlive their ability to drive somewhere between 7 to 10 years. So what are the options in communities that exist for people who either cannot or choose not to drive? We also know bike and pedestrian fatalities have been on the rise for the last decade, and older adults represent a disproportionate share of the pedestrian fatalities in 35 states. When it comes to parks and public spaces, we know older adults are not utilizing parks at the same share they represent of the population. And all of those things and much more roll into this sense of isolation and loneliness that contributes to very real health effects, not unlike smoking 15 cigarettes a day, as well as a higher risk of dementia. So we've developed several resources that can support communities to become healthier, to become more livable for people of all ages, and we hope that you will find them useful to your work. Our approach is to support communities and local leaders to think differently about their housing, their transportation, their public spaces, and ultimately to create great places for people of all ages. We run a voluntary program that's called the AARP Network of Age-Friendly States and Communities that walks localities and state governments through a set of questions about how to become more age-friendly. We've got more than 750 communities that have enrolled, as well as 10 states, 1 territory. They're all signed on. They're all working to improve the built and the social environment for the nearly 100 million people who live in those communities. They generally use what we call the 8 domains of livability framework. Many of the towns, cities, and counties that and states that are enrolled in the network are using this to organize and prioritize their work. In developing the age-friendly process, the World Health Organization asked people all around the world, what do you need in order to thrive in your community? And these were the aspects of community life that people identified as being really key to remaining as actively engaged in the life of the community as they want to be. So those include things like open spaces. People need public green spaces to gather with seating and accessible buildings. About 3/4 of all age-friendly action plans are working on those placemaking sort of projects. How do we enhance public and community spaces? And about half of them are working on park improvements. It looks at elements of transportation. How do we have safe crossable streets, dedicated bike lanes, a variety of public transit sort of options? About 3/4 of the age-friendly action plans are looking at improving transportation infrastructure. And nearly half are looking at pedestrian safety policy and programs. It looks at housing. Are there options available for different sort of incomes, ages, and life stages? And also community health. About 2/3 of all action plans are looking at improving health and public health sort of outcomes. There are obviously a lot more in there, but just to give you a sense of that. I'd like to show you some of the ways that some of the communities, the localities that are part of this network are taking action. For example, I'll turn first to the city of Austin. In 2020, during the COVID pandemic, the age-friendly community and many organizational partners asked City Council to establish a slow streets program, essentially closing the streets to traffic so people could walk, they could bike without having to dodge the cars. And so the council approved that. They began closing 10 miles of roadways. Eventually, the city said it was going to have to wind down the program, but Austin residents, organizations, they lobbied. And in October 2021, they were able to make that permanent. City Council adopted a resolution that permanently established the Living Streets program, creating really wonderful opportunities for continued physical activity in the public places through that effort. Similarly, Age-Friendly Greater Pittsburgh, which joined the Age-Friendly Network in 2015, has engaged volunteers with a project they call The Crossings, where they bring attention to dangerous intersections and street designs by creating flash mob-like street demonstrations that use creativity, humor. They sort of dance across the street and make that part of their advocacy for pedestrian safety. And in Carbondale, a small town in Colorado, there's a really wonderful story about how they've been doing walk audits for 4 years, working with the city there, and eventually leading to about $1 million worth of infrastructure projects to widen the sidewalks, add lighting, create traffic calming, and one of the busiest roads in their town. This effort's helped them to double the budget for their sidewalk maintenance and repair, and about 85% of the recommendations they've identified for those sidewalk hazards have since been repaired. So that gives you a little bit of a sense of some of the ways in which these age-friendly communities are increasing opportunities for physical activity through increased walking, biking, and the like. Another resource we offer is our Community Challenge Grant Program. We're now in the 7th year of this program, in which we're providing grants to communities that demonstrate through quick action, real tangible sorts of changes in the public spaces, housing and transportation spaces. We funded over 1,300 of these projects in every state in the US through about $16.3 million in total investment. And those impact 900 communities that reach 111 million people. Many of these community challenge grantees are implementing changes in the communities that improve the transportation infrastructure, the public spaces, the community health environment, and much more. We had some special call outs this year for grants around transportation systems change. That was a category funded by Toyota Motor North America, as well as some capacity building micro grants, looking at how do we increase the number of community gardens and increase walkability. And we saw tremendous interest and demand in those areas. All of these are the sort of things we try to fund with the idea that sometimes it just takes a little infusion of cash to demonstrate a concept that a community can really go forth and run with. So I'd say the beauty of this program is it's responsive to real community needs. You can see here just a few of the ways that communities are approaching this, their sort of projects to spur long-term and permanent types of change. You can see here a crosswalk art project called Be Safe in Baltimore, Maryland, that engaged local residents in designing and creating artistic crosswalks to slow the traffic, increase the safety of the crossings for school children, and celebrate neighborhood identity. We know that community gardens, I think Allison made this wonderful point about connecting physical activity with also food security and access to healthy foods. We know that community gardens can really be perfectly at that intersection, encouraging physical activity, but also providing that needed space for food production and social connection. So you can see here the town of Bowman in North Dakota, which is a population of 1,500, where they were able to upgrade their garden and add some accessible seating and other sort of infrastructure improvements. And then we also are very interested in funding programs that get community members active. Here's one, the Katahdin Snowdown in Maine, where they had an outdoor event that encouraged folks to get together in a generational sort of atmosphere and a recreational outing in the early months of the pandemic. So this is just tip of the iceberg. These are 3 of more than 1,300 projects all around the country. But again, just demonstrating the sort of creativity and innovation that's happening in communities nationwide. I'll close out with just a couple resources specific to active living. We have a great library of publications. I'm not going to go into all of them, but one of my favorites is our Walk Audit Toolkit. This toolkit provides step-by-step instructions and checklists for examining intersections, sidewalks, driver behavior, public safety. I was just actually on one of these last night. There's nothing like going out and actually looking at your streets through that lens to really understand what's working well and what could be better. We're working with the League of American Bicyclists on a bike audit toolkit that's going to be very similar, but focused on bike safety. So stay tuned for that. And then we have the good fortune of working with wonderful partners in this space, organizations like America Walks through their state walking college program, through which we've trained up 150 walkability advocates nationwide, as well as a current effort, the Mayor's Institute on Pedestrian Safety, through which we're collaborating with the Mayor's Innovation Project and Smart Growth America, helping mayors to take a hard look at the opportunities and challenges of pedestrian safety in their cities. These can all be really wonderful sorts of approaches for jumpstarting change. We've also got some resources in the Healthy Public Spaces arena from our Parks and Public Spaces collection, which we created with national expert 880 cities on the importance of parks and really looking at how you can manage those outdoor spaces to maximize physical activity. Our pop-up placemaking toolkit, which demonstrates the power of temporary projects in building support for long-term and more permanent types of change. And then our newest publication on creating community gardens for people of all ages, looking at how we can create inclusive intergenerational outdoor spaces. These are all free. They're available print and download on our website, and we hope that you'll find them useful. So a question that we probably get most often is what's an easy bite-sized thing someone can do that wants to impart a little bit of change in their community? Best thing, as always, is to get informed. There are lots of different on-roads, lots of different on-ramps to this work. So you can do things like subscribe to our newsletter. It's chock full of ideas. There's inspiration from all around the country. Get it dropped in your inbox every week and find out what new resources there are, what are other communities doing. You can look up your community on our livability index. We provide a data-driven score that reveals how livable an area is across more than 60 different indicators related to housing, transportation, health, and the environment. It can be a great conversation starter on how and where a community can start to take action to become more age-friendly or more livable. We've also got a map that you can see here where you can look up your community, find out where have there been some of those investments in age-friendly communities and through the Community Challenge Grant Program and the like. What sort of opportunities are out there? So I love the point that Allison closed with around from the Physical Activity Guidelines Midcourse Report. I thought there was a very important message. We've all got a role to play in increasing physical activity levels among older adults, no matter what sector we're coming from, whether that's government, healthcare, housing, land use, nonprofit, parks, transportation. We can all be involved in these efforts, and ultimately we will need to be to meet the needs and the demands of an aging nation. We know that the challenges communities face are daunting. There are solutions. Ultimately, by 2034, as I said, the US will, for the very first time, be a country comprised more of older adults than of children. For the first time, there will be 3 generations, baby boomers, Gen X, and millennials, that will all be 50 and older. I'll be about ready to sign up for my AARP card. My kids will no doubt be riding that bike instead of in those seats. We are all aging. We all want our communities to work for us across our full, extraordinary, and ever-changing lives. So thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to the Q&A. And now I have the pleasure of introducing the next speaker, Dr. Justin Barclay with Tivity Health. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the time today. As she mentioned, I'm Justin Barclay. I lead consumer insights and analytics for an organization by the name of Tivity Health. For those of you who don't know Tivity Health, we have been around for about 30 years, number of products under our belt, but probably the one most notable and commonly remembered is our flagship program, Silver Sneakers. It, for those 30 years, has been the leading community fitness solution for older adults across the country, with over 16,000 locations across multiple communities and about 18.2 million 65 plus older adults eligible for the benefit today. So about 1 in 4 of your Medicare enrollees. Now, as we've heard coverage of the policy and systems level of this need to increase physical activity, and we've also talked about the community level understanding of how we continue to increase that 15% or so reaching the guidelines. What I'm going to be covering very briefly for the next few slides is at an individual level. It's a thematic analysis of what the lived experience is, both of a number of our Silver Sneakers members in physical activity programs like ours, as well as just physical activity and exercise across older adults, 65 plus, primarily in Medicare Advantage more generally. So one of the things that I thought was powerful that Allison mentioned was this idea of contemplators. And sure, one of our earliest line graphs showed a percentage that is only about 15% of older adults meeting the physical activity guidelines. But at the same time, we also noted that it's continued to increase, it's continued to rise. Why that's important and why that and contemplators go together is because what we've ultimately seen through our systematic analysis of just behavior and input from our 18 million members, and most notably our program participants across the country, is that we're seeing more contemplators take action now than we've seen in years. Now, granted, some of that is because we are squarely post-pandemic at this point, and so behavior is changing, routines are updating, but there are also a couple of positive externalities from the pandemic, just to remind us all of that I think set a pretty critical backdrop. Those include the very less than gentle infusion of digital into the daily lives of older adults within the first few months of the pandemic. You had shelter in place that later became mitigation strategies only, that later became back to sort of this life as we knew it for the most part prior. And we're seeing in market increases every month that we look at it, an increasing overall sense of acceptance with socializing in public again. So you have a population who is now steeped in digital, sort of because they had to mostly, but now inviting it, accepting it, embracing it, going from shelter in place to wanting to be connected to the community again, though, as we'll of course note, not to the degree that they would prefer. And then ultimately seeing this, I think, last sort of byproduct, again, one of the few, and there are only a few positive externalities from the last few years, is that wellness, healthy aging became top of mind for so many more seniors as a result of the pandemic. And so what we've been seeing is the time of renewal coming out of that shelter in place, coming out of mitigation, accepting digital fitness, looking at things like a renewed and expanded definition of fitness and wellness. We're seeing folks who are coming off the sidelines, so to speak, and losing 84 pounds and getting involved in exercise programs for the first times in their lives and having these amazing experiences, moving from contemplator to someone who's taking action. And just more evidence of that behavior change that's really more noticeable and notable now than it has been in some time. So we have a number of consumer personas that helps us reach into the different segments of our population. Two of them that would fall squarely into more of that contemplator status are our help seekers and our exercise averse, who are maybe even contemplating less, but they're now 28% of our participant population, largest it's ever been. 31% of those using this national fitness program, even after 30 years of legacy, new to exercise. Imagine for me, if you will, someone of this age, very first time, new to exercise. I'm intimidated every time I try to start up exercise again. I cannot imagine how that experience will be for me at 65, and yet it's nearly a third of our population, more than a third of our population new to a gym membership, first time stepping into a gym membership, which is again at the crux of, but certainly not the totality of, the fitness, nutrition, and social connection solutions we offer. But again, think of the potential intimidation of such an environment and such a lived experience. And yet that describes 34% of who are participating today, because folks are choosing fitness, wellness, physical activity. Their definitions are expanding, their comforts into socializing publicly again, increasing want to connect with their community, increasing, and leaning into things like digital to help get them started and increase perceptions of self-efficacy are all helping out. And of course, back to one of the other points that both Allison and Rebecca have made, is just the very tangible results of being physically active. This is no longer just the folks who've started up in the program recently. This is all participants. 88% saying that it's improved their quality of life, 89% feeling healthier, and nearly 3/4 seeing a stated improvement in levels of self-efficacy, doing more than they thought possible. These are not just the impacts of exercise and physical activity. And as the Midcourse Report notes, exercise and physical activity are not the same thing. But when we embrace one or the other, we find notions of self-efficacy to immediately improve. And that's for anyone and any level of physical activity. So then we also have a little bit of data zooming out to the general population. As I mentioned, the Medicare Advantage 65 plus population, we deploy trackers on a pretty regular basis across many of the areas where our organization contributes to older adult fitness and wellness, including fitness, nutrition, social connection, technology adoption, COVID impact. Why that matters is we've been tracking intent to exercise and are happy to report that that intent is increasing, markedly so in the most recent months, in fact. And there is, of course, a balance, sort of a give and take to this result, unfortunately. And this is where I want to sort of slow down for just a moment to continue to get into those themes that we're seeing among the individual, which is for those who aren't participating in physical activity, that the biggest reason for that being the case is motivation. Now, granted, everyone presenting on this call and a number of other recent reports from any of us to Kaiser Family to McKinsey Health Institute published something in May talking about the many, many variables that are contributing to hedged levels of motivation among older adults, whether that's anything from food and financial security to social isolation, which we'll touch on in just a moment, and loneliness, to also ideas of things like purpose, and even ideas around things like purpose at this age, if that sense and definition of purpose wanes, motivation to do something like engage in physical activity wanes as well. So part of what we're wanting to walk away from this conversation with is just a clear understanding of not necessarily who's active and why, but as importantly, who isn't active and why. And we would certainly charge that, be it intrinsic or extrinsic motivation, both certainly part of what remains top of mind. Some bright spots we have seen among the general population, 65 plus, mostly in MA, include participation in digital workouts. Again, digital was certainly thrust upon this group very early in the pandemic. I think it was McKinsey who noted something like 10 years of technology adoption in something like 10 weeks. Not only agreeing with that, but also just making the point that any stereotype around how older adults perceive personal technology, those ideas, those stereotypes have been dashed for a few years now. And we're now seeing not only a continued uptake in digital adoption, expectations around personalization, but as importantly, they're extending that digital adoption into things like workout programs. And if you've seen any of the coverage from anyone specifically in the fitness industry, like some of your more popular fitness centers from Planet to Equinox, they're the ones who are continuing to mention the fact that folks are more broadly across generations leaning into the idea of hybrid fitness. So that could be at home, it could be in the gym, it could be in the community, it could be virtual, but the point remains, the fact remains that across all those venues, that it's the same person moving fluidly, depending on things ranging from, as Rebecca would say, a walkable, inviting neighborhood, to weather, to just current conditions in their home. And so hybrid fitness is being adopted, and it continues to be adopted in a greater number of older adults over time. But again, to sort of create that balance, we also mentioned that the percent of seniors who are lonely, while it's decreasing, that's the good news, it had increased for so long, even post the most acute phases of the pandemic, we're still at relatively high levels. And whether you look at questions ranging from lack of companionship and just feeling left out and isolated, to actual documented scales for this, like UCLA's loneliness scale, and still citing that 23% of older adults meet the threshold for loneliness today. Physical activity is all of the topics we've covered: policy, systems, community, and the individual. And that individual, whether they're dealing with food insecurity, whether they're dealing with financial insecurity, whether they're dealing with a constriction around a sense of purpose, or it's just simply feeling isolated from others and or lonely, these factors all play a very considerable role in the level of physical activity we're seeing among this population, even as the number of contemplators who are taking action continues to increase fairly linearly over time. Just a couple other things to briefly mention, one being, as there is that sort of expanded definition of fitness over time that we've seen as one of those few positive externalities of the pandemic, we see that some of the other content that they're seeing is very fitness adjacent, include brain health with a very high demand score here, fall prevention, nutrition education, and weight loss. So fitness and the definition of it has expanded to such a degree among older adults as part of this broader focus on wellness now and healthy aging, that these are some of the content areas that continue to remain top of mind for them as they think about fitness and fitness adjacent programming. And finally, probably the most important data point to share is what their goals are. Now, in some cases, New Year's resolutions can be seen as hackneyed, and I get it. And to some extent, maybe I even agree with you. But one of the reasons we ask this question is we continue to receive questions of our own about what is it about physical activity, or specifically fitness programs, exercise programs, be it in the community, from organizations, through more public health systems, that what are the specific needs they need to solve for first before they can be more broadly adopted? In essence, what are the goals of the older adults that we're trying to activate into those programs? And you have assumptions ranging from, well, this is only going to appeal to the elite athlete, or this is going to only appeal to somebody with a very specific set of chronic conditions. I want to just take a final moment to mention that among the many goals of seniors today, they include healthy aging, they include longevity, they include independence. And when we're talking about physical activity, and we're talking about fitness, and we're talking about their health goals for 2023, they're just as straightforward as you would expect. They're just the same ones that any of us would respond with. And they want to eat healthier and exercise more, lose some weight and sleep a little better, and maybe sit, eat, and stress less, and get outside again because you can. So in many ways, as we continue to talk about all of this being all our jobs, not only do we continue to agree as well, but would also just impart that it doesn't necessarily have to be something so complex for the person's context that it goes very far beyond these very straightforward goals to move a contemplator to action. And where I'll finish is not necessarily a testimonial to Market Silver Sneakers, but rather just to speak to the very value delivered by fitness programs like ours, which is older adults seeking this change, seeking this health improvement today, like Patrick, are assuming positive intent from all of us, which is probably even more important than my coverage of their goals. That positive intent being assumed across organizations, across channels and venues, recognizing that none of us are looking to make a buck off of this or to necessarily reach a certain goal other than just ensuring a healthier older adult. That's being seen, recognized, and appreciated by those who are moving from contemplation to action.
Great, thank you, everybody. Hope you can see me there. Wonderful. I will say my hardest challenge as a moderator is not to get so ingrained in what you all are talking about and pay attention to questions that are coming through. So I want to first point out, first of all, say thank you to our presenters. And then we use the Q&A feature. So if you have questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A feature for all of us to see. One question that has come up is, Allison, you have a slide that was specific to this, but it may be a question really for all of you in your different organizations that you operate in. Allison, in one slide you had from 1998 to 2018 that all the older age brackets were increasing their physical activity, which is wonderful news. How much, if at all, I assume it did set us back a little bit, did COVID set us back? Did those numbers drop dramatically? Have they recovered since then? It really could be a question to any of you, but I'll go to Allison first.
Yeah, thank you. I know that our colleagues at CDC are really in the weeds with all that data and the data collection. And I think it's only just starting to come in. I would imagine that there was some big impacts, but I haven't seen the most recent data. So if anybody else has, please put that in the Q&A or if anybody else on the panel. I haven't seen the recent data, so I apologize.
I think the only thing I would mention here, and it's only top of mind given our partners, but when you think about the fitness centers, the gyms themselves, they had seen, not only because there was a temporary shutdown in the earliest parts of the acute phase of the pandemic, but just an overall lagging of folks returning to those locations. Because they're such a big part of the overall physical activity recipe, I would mention that roughly 25% of all gyms have permanently closed as a result of the pandemic. And that alone, just as a part of the broader sort of fitness ecosystem, will certainly have had a dramatic effect, not only on commercial aged folks trying to stay healthy and active, but for physical activity among older adults as well, even if they are, in some instances, probably most instances, a smaller portion of overall gym membership.
Just add in, one thing, some of the trends we noticed during the COVID pandemic was a real sort of resurgence in terms of interest in parks, public spaces, folks looking for ways to get out, to socialize, to be active, to exercise, to be with others in ways that felt safe. And so we were really pleased to see that was a solution that communities were turning to, looking at reinvesting again in some of those spaces in order to make them part of the solution so folks could continue to achieve those goals at a time when maybe they weren't as comfortable doing some of that at a gym or inside as they might have been previously.
Great, thank you. That kind of leads right into my question to you, Rebecca. When it comes to with the pandemic and people wanting to improve outdoor spaces, as you just mentioned, parks, bike lanes, those kinds of things, and kind of coincidentally, as I have road construction going on right in front of my office here, a question that I often get from folks, and maybe this is in some of your materials too, is how do we move this process along a little more quickly? So we we say we need to have bike lanes here or there. How does AARP view kind of moving the needle a little bit faster in your communities?
I love this question so much. And there are, I guess, three things I would say to that that I really think of as sort of keys to our success. One is engaging older adults. That is so central to the way we do our work, as we've all made the point it's a large and growing part of the population. And we know that when we design for older adults, we design better places for everyone. So being very intentional about how you're reaching out to that community, what sort of partners you're engaging to make sure you're really having that sort of engagement across the age span is really super important. The second is we are a big fan of what we would call pop-up placemaking, tactical urbanism. How do we try through temporary demonstrations, projects that can help prove the case? So maybe you're doing a temporary bike lane down Main Street to make the case that it's not actually going to impede traffic or affect businesses negatively. I think there's a much greater appetite to being able to actually experience that and know that it's temporary, as opposed to just reading about it or hearing about it. It can help to alleviate a lot of that community concern, and it's become a really sort of key strategy, that piece of strategy that will encourage communities to look at and try as a way to just change the conversation, right? And to get past some of that initial concern per se. And then the last thing I'll say, you ask about speed, and I think the other part is just those sort of cross-sectoral partnerships that I think we've all spoken to the importance of. We can do this work better when we don't do it alone, when we do it in partnership with other organizations. And so I think those three together are some of the tips, tools, tricks of the trade we've seen communities probably employ most effectively in that space.
Thanks. A question came through of somebody. It says they're over 65 but still working, told they're not eligible. What do you have the eligibility criteria for the Silver Sneakers program specifically, Justin?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's certainly less about whether you're still working or not and of a specific age. It really has to do with the Silver Sneakers program is an embedded benefit as part of both Medicare Advantage and Medicare Supplement plans. So the silversneakers.com website does include a very easy to use health plan lookup tool, but there are over 75 health plans across Medicare Advantage and Medicare Supplement today who offer the Silver Sneakers benefit as embedded as part of the plan, and it would be one of them would ruin. So as long as you have either Medicare Advantage or Medicare Supplement, there's a good chance you have the program.
Great, thank you. Other questions from the audience? We have about 6 more minutes before we have to close up shop here. Oh, I have a quick, that's a good question. I just saw come through. Have any of the Community Challenge grant recipients been in the rural location, and what have they done?
Yes, about 42% of our Community Challenge grant recipients this year are in rural communities. We believe it's one of the largest rural placemaking programs out there. We've had over $1 million investment in rural places just this year. And I will say, having reviewed hundreds of applications this year, and many of my colleagues at the state and national level have done the same, there is an incredible amount of creativity and innovation coming out of rural communities right now. We saw some really innovative projects in terms of looking at their built environment, their public spaces, also in the community health space. What was sort of a trend we saw this year, increased interest in community health across a lot of the areas we're talking about: physical activity, nutrition, family caregiving, and the like, and communities looking at really innovative solutions. How can we look at making, for example, going back to the partnerships, making libraries sort of central location for telehealth, for example, or how can we look at increasing access to food by looking at different solutions for communities maybe that don't have a pharmacy or that have limited grocery hours? What are some of the creative solutions that nonprofits and governments are looking at? So I think we just see a wealth of interesting projects that come out of the rural space. I will say they skew particularly heavily in the public spaces arena. So that's where we've seen them, I think, really show a lot of leadership, but really across the board. And I would encourage folks, again, if folks are so moved to go to our website, you can read about them all there. You can find videos of some of them and photos. I am floored by the creativity that communities are employing through this, and always learn a lot and leave with a very heavy dose of inspiration. So it's well worth taking a look at. And I think in many ways, rural communities are indeed leading the way.
I'm a little biased being from a rural community myself, but I know, like you mentioned the library partnership with physical activity. Some libraries in rural areas now kind of give out materials to help you be more physically active, and kind of thinking outside the boxes is really fascinating there too. Don't see any other questions coming through right now, so we will, Ayana, put into everybody, please sign up for our Physical Activity Alliance newsletter. I want to let you all know there will be a recording available of this presentation. Thank you to our presenters, Allison, Rebecca, and Justin, for presenting to us today. We really appreciate it. And again, I can always judge a presentation by how much I don't pay attention to my responsibilities. So that you had a great presentation, and I appreciate it. And then thank you to all of our attendees for coming and engaging with our webinars. And of course, thank you to the Physical Activity Alliance and our partners in the CDC for hosting this webinar. Everyone be well, and thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.